Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and today we're going to look at the Dolphins' remaining schedule to see if there is still hope to salvage the season. Can this seemingly huge mess be turned around in time for a playoff push, or is that totally unrealistic? As we get into it, you'll see that despite the underwhelming start to 2021, there is still hope yet, and the turnaround could begin this week in London. Without further ado, let's dive in. Things have been bleak these days, haven't they? After an offseason filled with hope and promise, including an influx of talent from free agency and the draft, as well as general optimism in year 3 of the Flores-Greer regime, everything seemed to be falling into place. And then the fall came, and what was expected did not. No, that stayed back in the offseason, and a barrage of disappointment and disaster has followed. Every Dolphins outlet is giving you the doom and gloom take, and we've done our fair share of that here on the show. I mean, why not? It's been a rough month, but I want to look ahead at Miami's remaining schedule. With 12 games still left to go, is there really any chance of turning things around? Well, dear listener, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news? Yeah, there is hope, and a playoff push is not yet out of the question. I'm being serious. The Dolphins could legitimately go on a hot streak here and salvage their season. The bad news, it starts with a win this weekend, and if the Phins fall to the Jags in London, it's over. It's done. There's no hope. We'd have to begin looking on to not only next season, but also begin questioning the direction of the regime as well as the overall success of the rebuild that began back in 2019. But we'll get to that bridge and cross it if we need to. For now, we're looking at the future forecast. Miami currently sits at 1-4. That includes a big division win against the Patriots, a crushing loss to division rival Buffalo, who truly looks like a wagon in the AFC. In that game, not only was the team's pride snatched away, but so was their starting quarterback, as Tua Tagovailoa cracked multiple ribs and would go on to miss time. The Dolphins, without their starting quarterback, led by Jacoby Brissett now, then fell to the Raiders, who, prior to this John Gruden mess, God, what a dumbass he is, huh? But the Raiders were looking like a playoff contender in the AFC. They were undefeated at that point, and Miami fell to them in overtime on the road. Then, in my opinion, the worst loss of the season, because then Miami lost to the Colts, who hadn't won a game yet. And again, we were being led by Jacoby Brissett. And then finally, this past weekend, a beatdown at the hands of Tom Brady and the defending Super Bowl champs. Now, entering the second quarter of the season, you can draw one of a few takeaways at this point. One, this team is not very good. From what we've seen, Miami's probably like a 4-6 win squad, a generally huge disappointment, and everyone should be fired come January. There's something deeper at hand, and it seems that the team itself has given up on their coaches quickly into the season. Then you have the optimistic lens, the lens from which we will be looking at the remainder of the season in this video. The Dolphins were ballin' with one hand tied behind their back, specifically their left hand. Tua Tagovailoa returned to practice this week and, according to Brian Flores and multiple reports, is hopeful to play. Look, he's playing this weekend in London. That's guaranteed. If there was any doubt at all, the team would not have taken him off of IR this quickly. Like I said, when the injury happened, he likely could have gone back and even played in the Colts game. If the playoffs were on the line, he would have returned, probably sooner, but the staff decided it was better to be safe than sorry. Ultimately, they were very sorry, as the team lost every single game without their starting quarterback. We touched on this earlier, too, but the setup for Tua is both a blessing and a curse. It's not really fair to ask him to save the season, considering the state of the team right now and how little margin for error he has, but the blessing comes in the fact that he can prove everyone who doubts him wrong. If Miami can rattle off a little streak here and get back in the mix, then I think Tua is going to prove his worth to a lot more people. So let's look ahead and see what the road looks like. This weekend, Miami faces Jacksonville, who sits at 0-5. Remember last season? Miami played the Jags on Thursday night, a game against Gardner Minshew, and a game which many thought Miami was going to lose. The Dolphins did not start well to that season. And guess what? The Jaguars game was the Dolphins' get-right game. We need a get-right game, and this is the perfect opponent for that. Miami not only has to win this game, but they should win this game easily. I want them to win in convincing fashion. You're playing an inferior opponent in almost every way, a rookie quarterback, and the team should use the Jaguars similar to how the Bucs used us. Now look, I know Trevor Lawrence has been good at times and is considered an elite talent, but Flores and Boyer have had success stopping rookie quarterbacks. Not only do we need Tua to perform, but we need this defense to show up and become the unit they're supposed to be. So we're chalking a win here. Nothing's guaranteed, obviously, but for the sake of this exercise, we're going to make some general projections. Well, the Dolphins would then be 2-4. Not great, but better than 1-4, and certainly better than 1-5. Next, the Dolphins get another gift by traveling back home from London to play the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are not a good team. We've seen that through the season so far, and although they have 2 wins to Miami's 1, their 2 wins come at the hands of the Giants and the Jets. Again, this is a game Miami must have, and if they do, Tua would be 2-0 in his return, and that in and of itself can inspire some hope in the fan base, as well as, more importantly, in the team. And would you look at that? The Dolphins are 3-4, back in it. Here comes some daunting news, however. Miami then, after these 2 easy games, has to travel up to Buffalo. Obviously, a win here would be monumental in changing the tides of the season, but considering how great Buffalo has looked, how recently Miami played them and failed against them, I think we all expect another loss here. The Bills are running away with the division. That much is evident at this point. So the Dolphins now sit at 3-5. Not great, but not out of it quite yet. The Dolphins then travel to Houston, where they face the Texans, another rookie quarterback in Davis Mills, who's looked pretty solid, comparable to Mac Jones, and an otherwise struggling Texans team. I like their coach, David Culley, but I don't think he really stands a chance with that ownership. This is a game the Dolphins also have to have, and I believe they will. So now, we're looking at 4-5. Here's where the season reaches a true tipping point. Miami plays at home on Thursday Night Football in front of the whole nation. We play our kryptonite, well, aside from the Bills, as the Baltimore Ravens come to town. If you remember, Brian Flores began his career with an absolute spanking at the hands of Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh back in 2019. I hope he remembers that, and as well as everyone else who was part of that team, not many left. But I hope this team does everything in their power to get some revenge. If Miami is 4-5 at this point, coming into Thursday night, I think a lot of fans will have more optimism about potentially pulling off an upset. But at this point in time, from where we sit in week 6, projecting a win would be a little too fantastical. So we'll give a loss here, and the team then goes to 4-6. Miami then has a 4-game stretch where if they want to make the playoffs, they got to go undefeated, even after a loss to Buffalo and the Ravens. The good news is that the opponents in this stretch are not that good at teams. Miami plays the Jets, the Panthers, the Giants, and then the Jets again. The toughest game in there is easily the Panthers, but considering they just lost to the Eagles, I think that 3-0 start was a little fraudulent. The bad news, Christian McCaffrey's likely going to be back at that point, but again, Miami would not have any room for error considering the opponents who are still upcoming. If Miami is able to sweep the Jets, beat the struggling Giants, and pull out a big win against the Panthers, their season is alive once again. Honestly, if we're going to look at this from a macroscopic lens, essentially what we're asking for, aside from winning the games they should, is to get one of the Bills, Panthers, or Ravens. They need to get one of those. Honestly, my money would be on the Panthers, but hey, who knows? They could beat the Ravens. In some fantasy world, they might beat the Bills, but that's not happening. But if they do that and go across this stretch the way we've described and won the games that they need to, their season is alive once again. If this was to transpire, the Dolphins will have gone from 1-4 to 8-6. One hell of a turnaround and still in the thick of the playoff race. And I don't know about you, but the games that I listed as wins, they're very doable. Miami finishes the season on a tough stretch, a stretch which, in this scenario, ultimately determines their season. They play the New Orleans Saints, Tennessee Titans, and then New England Patriots. If Miami goes 2-1 in that stretch, they finish the season at 10-7. That would make the year successful in my book, especially considering the start and the fact that Miami missed their starting quarterback for 3 games. It would also mean that Tua came back and went 9-3, proving once again that he's a winner. And at that point, Miami would be foolish to not continue to build around the young quarterback if he goes 9-3 in this 12-game stretch. If Miami is able to somehow sweep those teams, not only would the team be riding a 7-game winning streak, but then they would also be 11-6 in the wild card conversation. Now I know what you're thinking. Moose, whatever you're on, whatever you're smoking, I want some. Because you got to be drugged up out of your mind to think this team has any shot of finishing with either 10 or 11 wins. I know, it's foolish, and likely the reason I'm still going to be disappointed when we ultimately finish with 7 or 8 wins. Here's the thing, though. As we've gone through the schedule, it is possible. It really is. Foolhardy, perhaps, but definitely possible. Abso-fucking-lutely. In Miami's remaining 12 games, these are the teams that they have to beat, that they must beat. The Jets twice, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Falcons, and the Texans. Those are 6 wins right there, giving Miami 7 total. They have to find a way to steal 3 to 4 wins against the likes of the Bills, Ravens, Panthers, Saints, Titans, and Patriots. And frankly, you could throw the Patriots in that easy category that we talked about earlier. But regardless, Miami has to somehow find a way to win 3 to 4 in those 6 games. I don't know about you, but that does seem doable. Miami should beat the Patriots, like I said, and they should be able to compete with the Saints, who don't look nearly as good without Drew Brees, and potentially pull out a win. That one's going to be in New Orleans on Monday night. The game I just won't give them, can't give them, is Buffalo. But the Dolphins are still in position to save their season, even if they get spanked by Buffalo again. All hope is truly not lost, people. It really isn't. Again, it's important that the team handles their business. We as fans can look out and project months down the line as we're doing, but there is so much unknown in the NFL, and the team has to be where their feet are, one game at a time. It all starts with a get-right game this weekend against the Jags. If Miami falls, then all this hope and projection can be thrown out the window. I'll tell you this, though. A turnaround like the one I've described will not only be fun as hell, it would show that contrary to what many are saying, this team still believes in the coaching, the vision, and we're still a good young team. It may not have looked like it so far. It really doesn't look like it. But with the return of their franchise quarterback, yeah, I said it, Tua is their franchise quarterback. You might not think he's elite. He might not even be good to you, but he is currently their franchise quarterback. With his return, we can see this team salvage the season. Do you agree with my assessment, or do you think I'm smoking something strong? Let us know in the comments below. It will be fun or extremely depressing to come back to this video in a few months just to see whether this hope was warranted or if I continue to never learn my lesson and be once again disappointed by this team. Moving to a bit of general team news, the Dolphins made a pretty good signing this week as they brought in former Eagles wideout Travis Fulgham. I personally love this move. I really think Fulgham is a good young player who can help this offense. With the expected injuries of Devontae Parker and Will Fuller, the team is suddenly thin at wideout. Fulgham is a big-bodied guy who made a real impact with Philly last season. Miami signed him to the practice squad, but I would expect him to get elevated pretty soon. Probably not this week, considering he just got in the building, but moving forward to next week against the Falcons, I would expect Fulgham to be suited up. At 6'2", 215 pounds, Fulgham has shown he can play in the slot or on the outside. He's sure-handed and a good route runner. Last season, through weeks 4 and 8, he was the NFL's leading receiver, and for the season as a whole, he caught 38 passes for 539 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like I said, I really like this move a lot, and aside from that disgusting number he's wearing, number 89, I think he has a shot of sticking with the team. His hands are good, and he excels playing against the zone. He's smart, and he knows where the soft spots are and sits in those zones, becoming a quarterback-friendly target, something we need more of on this team. We need more because, again, so far, Waddle hasn't done what we need him to do. Mac Hollins is not the answer, and Albert Wilson has been missing. So far, the only reliable guy has been Preston Williams and Devontae Parker, obviously Mike Gesicki, but I'm talking from a receiver standpoint. Preston Williams has played 1 game, and I'm glad he's back because him and Tua did have good chemistry last season prior to Williams' injury. And the last bit of news that we're going to talk about today is the social media frenzy, which was started by Tua Tagovailoa's personal trainer, Nick Hicks. And we've talked about him before, as well as his South Florida training program, Perform. He's in the news, and he in turn brought Tua into the news with him by stating that not only was the team being extremely unfair to his client, but that there was, in fact, a disconnect between Flores and his message to his players. Through 5 games, that does appear to be the case. But I would take this information with a grain of salt. Yes, Hicks talks to Dolphins players. He trains a few of them, including Will Fuller, Albert Wilson, and Tua. Likely he's heard some complaints, but let's get a few things straight. One, Albert Wilson missed all of last year. He was never really with Brian Flores much. Will Fuller just signed. Really, Tua and Jordan Scarlett are the ones who've been around, and Jordan Scarlett was also signed this offseason. So yes, Hicks does talk to Dolphins players, specifically Tua, has likely heard those complaints, but let's get a few things straight. He's not in the locker room, and he's only touched a handful of players. If you look deeper into what he said, I think there's just as much personal projection going on as there is truth. It started with a response to a Twitter poll. The poll asked if Brian Flores had lost the locker room. Perform's account stated, quote, "I meant yes, sorry," with yes in all caps. It didn't end there. Someone then tweeted to that response regarding Tua, coming back to a team that quit on their coach while he's still fighting for his job, ... Nick Hicks responded in a since-deleted tweet, quote, "Quit? This team is hard. This coach is hard to even talk to. How much harder do you think he is to play for? Child, please," end quote. So you can take this a couple different ways. Either Tua Tagovailoa has confided in his trainer, complaining about Flores and why he doesn't feel like they work well together, and now that same trainer is putting his client on blast and letting the whole world know what Tua said to him. That would be extremely unprofessional and a bit extreme for a businessman looking to attract NFL players. Here's the likely scenario and where I stand on the matter. Nick Hicks is not only a Tua supporter, he's a Dolphins fan. And like the rest of us, he's not big on how the season has gone on so far. Further, he's close with Tua and, as a friend, wants to defend him. Although I do believe Tua's probably complained to him a bit. I mean, why wouldn't he? It's Flores' fault that this whole bust narrative is even out there. Being pulled from 2 games is the only real fuel that the Tua doubters have. I mean, if you see some of the performances from Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, and even Mac Jones this season, any of them could have been pulled based on how Flores coached last season and the standard he held rookie quarterbacks to. If any of them were pulled, meaning Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, or Zach Wilson, if any of these 6 weeks in those couple of games, especially Wilson, where they deserve to get pulled, then the narrative surrounding those young signal callers would have taken a huge dive. It does make sense that Tua would be frustrated. But if Perform's tweets were verbatim what Tua told him, then not only would Nick Hicks be unprofessional, but also an idiot. Hanging your client out to dry is not a good move, no matter how frustrated he's been. Let him do his talking and complaining to the media if he wants to. I don't think Mr. Hicks is an idiot. I think he's a smart guy who, like I mentioned earlier, is a fan of this team. And as a fan of the team and a personal friend to Tua, he's defensive of his guy. He's going to bat for him. He's throwing shade at Flores for slights he feels has been done to his client. I think the fact that he voiced these comments likely means that no, it didn't come from Tua. It's coming from him. That's why he's comfortable putting it out there. I mean, think about it. We've all had friends tell us their secrets. And would it be cool of us to then go to our friends in front of our friend and then just tell that secret out loud? No. What we all do as friends, though, is if our friend didn't tell us this secret, is speak up for your buddy. If we feel like someone is wronging our guy or girl and they're not defending themselves, then we will. That's what I think is going on here. Nick Hicks believes in Tua, believes he can be an extremely successful NFL quarterback. He also feels like Tua's not being given a fair shake. You and me both, man. So he takes it into his own hands to defend his client and, more importantly, defend his friend. The answer is going to be given soon enough. Not only will Tua be asked about these comments whenever he speaks with the media, but we'll also see how the results are when the team plays. If Miami's able to rattle off a little winning streak here, then Mr. Hicks's message will be exactly what we just said, a fan lashing out in defense. If we collapse and the team begins tuning outflow and they don't listen to the messaging, and there's clearly a disconnect between the locker room and the coaching staff, then we know that, in fact, Perform was spilling secrets. As cool as that is for fans, still not professional, and for that reason, I doubt it's Tua's words exactly. What do you think? Was Perform speaking on Tua's behalf? Do you think Tua's camp told them to say it? Or do you think Nick Hicks was talking on his own accord, as I do? And even so, does it even matter? Let us know in the comments below. Tomorrow, we're going to dive into Miami's matchup against the Jaguars, offer our score prediction, as well as look into what the Dolphins have to do specifically in order to pull off a season-saving win in London. So be sure to subscribe and stick around.
Well, Tua Tagovailoa was officially designated to return to practice from injured reserve on Tuesday, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. He broke his ribs week 2 against the Bills, and he was placed on IR September 25th. Jacoby Brissett has filled in since and has had a 65.2 completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 82.2 passer rating. Tua, before the injury, 54.8 completion percentage, 215 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. Now, it was week 2, but the Dolphins have had a rough go so far this season.
The next 6 weeks, you got the Jets and the Jags and Atlanta and the Texans. What's happening to him, Joy, he has no career momentum.
Correct.
So in the next 6 weeks, he's got to find it. Like now, he's been injured twice. He came in injured. He's injured again. I didn't know the playbook. Didn't get voted team captain. He's got to gain momentum, and he's got a great opportunity, Joy, because the next 6 weeks. Now, I think they play the Packers and the Ravens too. Those are L's. But 4 of their next 6 games, there's real winnable games. And if he doesn't win or look good in those, Joy, I think it's over. Like, they made a decision. We're out.
Well, they travel to London and face the Jaguars on Sunday.
Have to win.
They're favored by 3.5, according to Fox Bet. They absolutely have to win that game. Then they have the Falcons at home. They have the Bills, the Texans, the Ravens, the Jets, Panthers, and Giants.
Those are a lot of winnable games.
There's a lot of winnable games there.
And
if you are a competitive team, and if Tua, to your point, can get some momentum going. But if you look at the AFC East standings, Bills are 4-1, Patriots are 2-3, Dolphins and Jets are 1-4. So going into this season, I think we probably were a little too high on the Dolphins' defense overall and what they were going to be able to do with Tua as a starter.
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Huge shout out to Timothy Ritchie, Brian Cougar, and Go Hydra, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Thank you guys so much. Really helps us keep going here at PhinsPod. So check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all again for the continued support. And please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show and subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember, the show is available wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And if you're listening on Apple, we'd appreciate a review. Helps the show out and helps other fans find the show. And of course, we're on YouTube, so subscribe. Continue the convo with us over on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day. And until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.